This man here wanted to use his wife for money ritual, but it backfired and he started vomiting money. Mr. Ben wanted to be rich. He did not care how. One night, he went to see a native doctor in the forest. "I want plenty of money," Mr. Ben said. The native doctor smiled. "Are you ready to do anything?" he asked. "Yes," Mr. Ben answered. The native doctor gave him a small charm wrapped in red cloth. "Cook this charm inside your wife's food. When she eats it, money will come to you." Mr. Ben was happy. He ran home and cooked his wife's favorite soup. He dropped the charm inside and waited for Linda to come back. The food smelled so sweet. Mr. Ben was hungry. "Let me taste more," he said. He took one spoon. Suddenly, his stomach started to pain him. He held his belly and cried, "Oh, my stomach." His throat felt hot. He opened his mouth and he vomited money. Fresh dollar notes. At first, he was happy. It worked, he laughed. But the money did not stop. More dollars poured out. He tried to breathe, but more money came. His throat was burning. His stomach was twisting. He fell to the ground, coughing up endless money. Linda came in and screamed. She saw Mr. Ben rolling on the floor, vomiting money. His hands were shaking. His eyes were full of fear. He wanted to talk, but only money came out. Mr. Ben had wanted money. Now, the money would not stop. Mr. Ben's eyes were big with fear. He tried to stop, but the money kept coming. His stomach felt like fire. His body was shaking. He held his throat, but more money poured out. Linda was afraid. "What is happening?" she asked, stepping back. Mr. Ben reached for her, but he was weak. His hands were shaking. His face was pale. The money was coming out fast, filling the whole room. Tears ran down his face. He wanted to cry for help, but only money came out. His chest was rising and falling fast. His body was jerking with pain. Linda ran outside, shouting, "Somebody help! Please help!" Neighbors rushed in. They thought it was thieves or fire. But when they saw Mr. Ben on the floor, vomiting dollars, they all stopped. One old woman gasped. "This is not ordinary. This is a curse." Linda cried. "Somebody do something." But nobody could help. The money kept coming. Mr. Ben's body was shaking. His eyes rolled back. His skin was white like chalk. He could not breathe well. The money he had prayed for was now killing him. Mr. Ben was rolling on the floor. His hands held his stomach. His mouth was wide open. The dollars poured out non-stop. The money covered his legs. Then his chest. Soon, only his head was showing. Linda shook him. "Ben. Stop. Please stop." But he could not stop. His eyes were full of tears. His lips stretched as more money forced its way out. The neighbors stood there, afraid. Nobody wanted to touch him. The old woman whispered, "Only the person that gave him the charm can stop it." Linda's heart was beating fast. She knew what to do. She turned and ran as fast as she could. She ran past the neighbors, past the houses, past the dark road, straight to the forest. The native doctor was sitting in front of his shrine, chewing bitter cola. Linda fell to the ground. "Please," she cried. "My husband is dying. The money will not stop coming." The native doctor laughed and shook his head. He was greedy. The charm was not for him. He took what was not his, and now the spirits are punishing him. Linda cried louder. "Please, I would do anything. Just stop it." The native doctor's eyes were shining in the dark. "There is only one way," he said. Linda wiped her tears. "Tell me." The native doctor smiled. "For him to leave." He paused and looked at her. "You must take his place." Linda's heart stopped. What do you mean? The native doctor leaned closer. If you want him to stop vomiting, then you must start. Linda's body shook. Her lips trembled. No, no. I can't do that, she cried. The native doctor smiled. Then your husband will die. Linda covered her mouth. She could not believe it. Mr. Ben was suffering. He could not stop vomiting money. His body was weak. His eyes were rolling back. If she did nothing, he would not survive. But. Linda stammered. Is there no other way? The native doctor shook his head. Only two choices, he dies, or you take his place. Tears ran down Linda's face. She thought about her husband. She thought about how he had wanted money so badly. Now, money was killing him. She fell to the ground and screamed. I don't want to die. I don't want to vomit money. The native doctor stood up. Then go home and watch your husband die. Linda's heart pounded. She did not know what to do. She got up and ran out of the shrine. She ran back home, breathing fast, sweat covering her face. When she got inside, she gasped. Mr. Ben was no longer moving. His body was buried under piles of dollar notes. Only his hands were sticking out. The money was still coming, but his body was still. Ben! Linda shouted, running to him. She pulled the money away, shaking him. Ben, wake up. Please don't die. But he did not move. His face was pale. His lips were dry. The money kept coming, but he was not breathing. Linda screamed. Mr. Ben had wanted money. Now, money had taken his life.